At Brussels airport, there were 2 explosions, one at the check-in area. It's thought 11 people were killed there and more than 30 injured. Around an hour later, another explosion at Malbec Metro in the centre of the city, close to the main European Parliament buildings. On the metro, 15 people are confirmed to have been killed. More than 50 others were wounded.
And across the city, people have been told to stay inside. The schools, metro, rail services all closed right now, and the Eurostar trains have been halted. Just to remind you, the capital already in a state of high alert following the arrest of Paris terror suspect Salah Abdeslam in the city last week.
The Belgian Prime Minister is calling for calm and solidarity. He said that at a news conference a short while ago. He's also sending more than 200 extra troops to the capital. He said this was the attack we always feared. And let us point you towards our website and the BBC News app. You can see it there on your screen for the very latest, a page with live updates as they happen.
Everything is there for you, all our correspondents on the ground who are tweeting, eyewitnesses as well, maps that explain exactly where these attacks took place, and also news from around Europe, how various airports are responding here in Europe, and also those messages of solidarity from various leaders. All there for you on the website. Do log on.
And we're joined now by Matthew Henman. He's head of IHS Jane's Terrorism and Insurgency Centre. He joins us from central London, and thank you for your time today. Hearing what we've heard about the relative freedom of movement landside at Brussels airport, are you surprised that it was a target?
No, it's not a surprise at all. Militant Islamist groups in Europe over the past months have shown their commitment and their dedication to striking targets which are full of civilians, full of foreign nationals, to have maximum impact from their attacks.
And do you think there's going to be a pretty swift response now in terms of airport security, especially landside?
Well, I think the fact that the check-in and departure section of the airport was attacked, which is obviously relatively unsecured compared to the proper departure lounges, means that there's going to be an intensified security effort at airports across Europe in response to this attack. As you've already mentioned, that is something which is going to be very difficult to maintain over the long term in terms of cost and disruption implications, but in the immediate term it's a clear security priority.
We were chatting with our security correspondent a short while ago about the capabilities of terrorist groups like IS in Belgium, and if the authorities thought with the arrest of Salah Abdeslam that they had turned a corner, this apparently demonstrates that is not the case.
Absolutely. I think the fact that firstly the wider logistics and facilitation network that supported the Paris attackers in November, the fact that they were still at large, demonstrated by the fact that Salah Abdeslam was able to remain at large for almost 4 months before he was arrested, indicates that there is a much wider network at play here in Western Europe. There are likely more cells who are either preparing or ready to carry out attacks, such as we've seen in Brussels this morning. Unfortunately, until that wider network is rolled up and destroyed by the security services, we're likely to see more attacks of this kind.
What can you tell us about, in broader terms, about the position of Belgium vis-à-vis individuals who may have left the country and travelled to places like Syria and then come back with the intention of carrying out attacks? Because Belgium, Brussels does seem to have been a particular target, doesn't it?
Well, it's been well documented that of all the EU countries, Brussels has by far and away the largest proportion of foreign fighters that have travelled to Syria and Iraq. You have hundreds of fighters who have travelled there, received training, combat experience, etc. at the hands of the Islamic State, and have likely been prepared to return back to to their country to launch operations there. Belgium is particularly strategically situated in that sense, in that it's relatively easy for militants to slip across borders into different countries to launch attacks, and you have a situation in areas of Brussels such as Molenbeek which are particularly difficult for the security services to penetrate and to successfully root out these individuals. We know that the security services, not just of Belgium but of France, Germany, the UK, are particularly stretched in terms of resources and capabilities currently, in terms of tracking individuals who are returning from Iraq and Syria. So when you have a country like Belgium, which is comparatively small, a smaller budget and capability to track returnees, combined with a comparatively far larger flow of people coming back from Syria and Iraq, you have a situation which is very dangerous indeed.
Okay, Matthew Henman from IHS Jane's Terrorism and Insurgency Centre, thank you very much.
To remind you of our breaking news today from the Belgian capital, Brussels. 3 explosions have killed 26 people in the capital. 2 blasts targeted the main airport there, the Zaventem airport. 1, we definitely know, according to the security services, was carried out by a suicide bomber. It was a scene of chaos and confusion. Huge panic at the airport today when those explosions went off. Let's talk now to Odetta Islam, who was at the airport this morning. Thanks for joining us, Odetta. What happened this morning when you were there?
Well, we were just having breakfast. We went there to bring my mom, and then suddenly there was an explosion on our right, and pieces of wall started to fall off, and everybody started running, and so did we. But in the meantime, I think in a time gap of 5 to 10 seconds, there was a second blast on the left. That was full of smoke, and we did not really know where to go, so we just stood in the middle, I think for about 5 minutes. But then there was nobody who could help you out, who came to help, or there was no guidance or anything. But then there was so much dust that we couldn't breathe, and that was the moment we actually thought that we had to go out.
It must have been incredibly frightening for you and for your mum.
Yeah, it was. I was not only there with my mom, I was actually with my whole family, my mom, dad, and my 2 brothers.
What else did you see as you were running? Did you see people who had been killed and injured?
Yeah, we have seen people who are really injured. I saw a mom with a newborn baby, a mom with 2 little children, a man who was lying on the floor.
And was there a lot of
people in blood?
Odetta, was there a lot of smoke as well and glass everywhere too?
Yeah, there was. Where we stood, there was a lot of smoke, so we couldn't see anything at the beginning. We didn't see glass, but there was a lot of dust. And also parts of the wall falling down, or the ceiling.
And was anyone there offering to help?
No, actually not. From inside, I think everybody was so shocked, and there was nobody from security, so we actually had to find our own way till we were outside.
Odetta, did people realize that it was a bomb?
Yeah. Well, in the beginning we didn't, but then when the second explosion took place, we actually knew that this was a bomb and that there could be more in the building.
So did that make people...
were really scared.
That must have been terrifying. Was there also a sense of panic, of worry that there might be another bomb?
Yeah, of course, I think. Definitely in my mind. There were people who were trying to hide under a desk or in a room, or they were just trying to find something to hide.
And you're safe now, home in Antwerp?
Yes, we're home, safe.
Okay. Odetta,
we had to wait for about 1.5 hours, but we reached home.
Thank you for joining us and telling us what you went through
Welcome.
this morning. Thank you.
Mina Alami is an expert on jihadi media from BBC Monitoring and joins us now. Mina, what sort of chatter have you seen? Are you picking up on jihadi media about any of this?
Well, so far there has been no jihadist claim of responsibility for the Brussels attacks. And in the absence of a claim, we look at the chatter, the tweets of supporters of jihadist groups, be it Al-Qaeda or its rival Islamic State group. So while IS hasn't claimed the attack, its supporters have really been in celebration mode on Twitter, sharing footage, sharing images, also heavily tweeting under an Arabic language hashtag that translates as Brussels under fire. And these supporters had used a very similar hashtag, Paris under fire, sorry, with the 13 November Paris attacks. So they seem to at least believe, these supporters seem to strongly believe that ISIS is behind these attacks.
I wonder how we might relate this in terms of the media that you're monitoring to the arrest, the capture of Salah Abdeslam a few days ago. Because, of course, there's been speculation that this was somehow a retribution for that capture. Also, the thought that maybe supporters or followers of his had brought forward some attacks they were planning because he had been captured, rather than it being an act of retribution. Any sense of what's going on there?
Yes, indeed. This was also a key line in the supporters' reaction, saying that this is in revenge for the arrest of Salah Abdeslam. Of course, as you say, I mean, this could not have been a very impulsive reaction, because the attacks clearly took planning and coordination, especially that there was, infiltration, or, the attack was carried out at the airport, at the metro, where there's tight security. So it couldn't have just been, an impulsive reaction. But they seem to believe that it was in some way involved to the arrest. Others have actually said that it was retribution for the 19th March U.S. airstrikes allegedly on a university in Mosul. So that was another line where IS supporters contributed. Now, if the group is indeed behind these attacks, it is likely to delay the claim of responsibility until everything has been concluded, and by that I mean that there are no further attacks planned, or that the operatives involved have either all been killed or have escaped. So this is what it did for the Paris attack. So until everything is concluded, IS is unlikely to put out a claim.
Okay, Mina, thank you very much for that. Mina Alami from BBC Monitoring.